It's my pleasure to actually introduce Daniel Cano, who's the Administrative Specialist for the Student Outreach and Retention Center, so SOAR at UCI, and he's going to be our moderator today for some of our awesome panelists. So let's go ahead and give a warm, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Karissa. Thank you so much, Patrick. And I'm excited to have these panelists here to talk about what it's like to being a first-gen staff member, but also thinking about how can we navigate the times that we are living in, and just really drawing on the gems of wisdom that folks are here to share today. So again, welcome to Resilience in a Time of Uncertainty. We hope that today's conversations can provide you with guidance, can provide you with support, and most importantly, provide you with hope, especially as we are navigating these waters. And just want to affirm that you have a network of first-generation staff that are here for you, as well as faculty members. And so with that, just remember that, and know that you're not alone in this process. And at this point, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with, again, on my screen, I have Dr. Ortega. And so what you all share is your name, your position, department, maybe a little bit about your joy/challenge during COVID, and if you want to share a little insight about what your post-bachelor's journey has been like.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot. All right. So hello, I'm Dr. Jessica Ortega. I'm a senior staff psychologist at the Counseling Center, located we're not there now, but we're located right near the, where SOAR is, we're kind of right there across Starbucks. And so pronouns she, her, hers. In terms of my length of time, I've been there about 15 years at the Counseling Center. So I've seen a lot of changes on the campus. Just a little bit of academic journey. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in counseling, and a PhD in counseling psychology. And right out of my training, my first job was UCI. So I've been there ever since. Yes, I've always been there. So your other question there, Daniel, you wanted me to share a little bit more about?
A little bit about
for intros.
Yes, a little bit about the joy/challenge during COVID.
Yes,
and that'll be good.
Yes. So navigating this, I think we all have our unique challenges, but then there's some commonalities. I think it came on what seemed to be suddenly. We saw things shifting, but in terms of my role as a psychologist out of the Counseling Center, there was a shift into make sure we maintain continuity of access to our Counseling Center for our students. I think me more personally, trying to navigate my life too. So managing personal along with the professional part and trying to cultivate a space where home usually was a separate space. It wasn't a space where I was working. And then the work that I do is pretty intimate work. And so it was almost like bringing in clients into my home because we've actually been doing video sessions and phone sessions with our students who are our clients and doing group work and things like that. And so trying to navigate that space and then trying to also cultivate what resilience looks like for me too, to kind of still stay connected to myself. And so the first few weeks, it was rocky. It was really rocky. So it was pretty tough because I also have a partner and trying to explain to him, no, stay upstairs, or, certain things you have to kind of have that you naturally would have in your environment where you're working. And so fielding all that, also trying to maintain safety. And so I think what we all can be feeling is different variability of stress, anxiety, for some feeling a sense of loss. And so sometimes you feel that what you thought you expected for spring is no longer. And so to coming to terms with that, spring for all of us is a really high energy time as students as well as staff. And so I think for me is trying to also learning to let go of things that I don't have control over, which I'll talk a little bit more about when we chat. But it's been a struggle, but at the same time trying to balance myself and find joy in the things that make me happy and that still make me feel connected to who I am in my spirit. So that's just a little bit. I don't want to take up too much time because I know intros are important and I know you have a lot to do. So thank you, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortega. Now I'm going to pass the baton to Brittney to introduce yourself. Sorry, I think you're on.
Hi, there I am. You may have to remind me, I'm just going to go off of my own intro. I'll keep it brief. So my name is Brittney. I'm one of the career counselors with the Division of Career Pathways. Can you remind me what you want me to share?
I was gonna also share in the chat. So position department, Joyce has challenged during COVID, and a little bit of would you like to share regarding your post like bachelor's student?
Thank you so much. So I will share a joy. I think a joy previous.
See,
You cut
looks like,
out.
yeah, looks like Brittney is frozen. So how about we go with Mariela? Do you want to go ahead and just jump in, and then hopefully we'll get Brittney after.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Menendez, and I am the Outreach and Recruitment Coordinator here for UC Irvine Graduate Division. In my role, I support a lot of our diversity and outreach efforts to get students to enroll and consider UCI as a graduate destination. I've been in my position now for a little over 2 years. One joy as it relates to COVID-19 is that I definitely do not miss sitting in traffic. I had a really heavy commute. So that's been my pro, but nonetheless, I too echo some of Dr. Vega's sentiments, and I had a difficult transition, kind of separating work and home, because, you know, at work is work, I come home as my free space to kind of, I guess, de-stress and just kind of decompress and take some time for myself. So I definitely had some time it took some time and some adjusting to kind of get a rhythm going for myself. I am also a first generation college student, proud product of the UC. I did my undergrad at UCLA and majored in sociology and minored in education. I spent some time in the public sector, nonprofits and charters before I transitioned to my position at UC Irvine. And I also pursued my master's in public administration in between.
Thank you so much, Mariela. Now pass the baton to Rocio.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosario Zamudio. My title is Transfer Counselor and Coordinator. I work under Student Success Initiatives with the Transfer Student Hub. So I primarily work with our incoming transfer students as well as our transfers who are finishing out and helping them launch post-UCI. So that kind of fits well with this topic that I'm hoping that I can work with you all today. And even though my title says that I work with transfers, I always make myself available to all students who walk in through Student Success Initiatives, or in this case, knock on my Zoom door or send me an email. So please feel free to reach out if any part of my story connects with you and you just want to ask any questions, feel free to do so. So a joy and a challenge. I do have a little girl who just turned 1 a few weeks ago. So that has been my joy, being able to spend more time with baby. So that's been a plus. The challenge, though, has been trying to find workspace in a 2-bedroom with a new coworker, aka hubby, and coworker baby. Oh, that's been a challenge. But finally, I think after 5 or 6 weeks, I've turned her bedroom into my office, and her workspace is out there in the living room. And we're also lucky enough that we've got grandparents who lend lots of hands, since she's the first grandbaby in the family. And then as far as a background with my education, I'm actually a transfer myself, which is another reason why I love to work with transfers. Transferred from Santa Ana College, went to Cal State Fullerton, and then got my master's at Cal State Long Beach. I did take a gap year in between to make myself a more competitive applicant, and was crazy and only applied to 1 graduate program because it was the only one I wanted at the time. Not the advice I give now to everyone, but yes, that is my crazy story. And then right out of my master's program, I got hired at UCI, thinking that I was always going to work at community colleges, because I worked all through my grad school education at community colleges. And then I got the position at UCI, and I fell in love with the people, the staff, and the students. And I'm just really fortunate because I also get a chance to work with community college students still as a part-time gig and doing some counseling that way. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. I get my little taste of community college as well as helping students finish out at the 4-year. So that's a little bit of background on me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosario. Also loving that background. It's got all the info you need. And now I saw that Brittney has joined us back. I think that also like helping with the video, like reducing probably might help with the audio. Again, if you could just introduce yourself, educational background, and joy / challenge during COVID.
Hi. Sorry, I'll say one of the beautiful joys is being adaptable in the midst of when your internet goes out. It's great. So being flexible with these internet challenges, I'm sure we all can relate to. So I'll just continue with my educational journey. I'm also UCI alum, transfer student, did my undergrad at UCI, did my master's at Cal State Fullerton in higher education, and I loved UCI so much, I came back to work at the Division of Career Pathways, and I've now been there for my 4-year anniversary will be in June. So super exciting, super grateful to be doing the work we get to do in this season.
Thank you so much, Brittney. As you all know, can feel and sense, we have a powerful and empowering panel here today. We are going to start to kick off our questions for each of the panelists. And our first question is, and feel free to kind of like jump in, what steps can first generation students take in building motivation during this unprecedented time of uncertainty?
I don't know if we're going in any certain order, but I can go. So I was just speaking to a student today about focusing on your passion for what it is that you want to do or what population you might want to work with. I realize you might be in a first year, a second year, or you might be on the other end of the spectrum, almost finishing your time at UCI. And I've had a lot of students make comments like, well, I don't know what to do now because of the situation that we're in or the current state of the world. And I've been encouraging students to really focus on what your passion is and what you love to do, and hold on to that as you keep pushing forward, because you really can't control the rest of the world, but you can control what you're doing. And so still taking on opportunities remotely to really keep pushing forward and keep motivated. And si se puede, you just got to keep going. It is possible.
Yes. Snaps to that. So I would just a little tidbit, like in terms of just how to maintain that motivation. Rally those around you, those people that are your loving souls, the ones that are going to champion you and encourage you. I think it's important, even more so now, to really stay connected to your mentors, your academic family, your familia, whoever that may be for you. It's hard to understand uncertainty. Uncertainty is really uncomfortable because it's in this place. So we look at from a psychological perspective, this ambiguity and not knowing when things are ending. And so we need to tap into that inner strength and that core part of you, that grit part of you that's allowed you to persist. When I think of myself as a first gen graduate, that's what you got to do. Sometimes that's the only thing you have to hold on to. And I think being around other people that can be those people that maybe when you're feeling at your weakest and you're feeling the lowest in energy, the ones that are going to just say, no, you got it. Like Rosario says, si se puede, just you can do it. To not lose sight of what's actually in your control, I think is really helpful during this time.
Thank you.
I would also add to, if you can, do a lot of informational interviewing. You'll be surprised because the COVID-19 impact has removed a lot of the interpersonal ability to connect. Virtually, a lot of people are available. I encourage you to talk to your professors, sometimes even your TA if you feel more comfortable, and ask them about their journey and how it is that they are where they are today. And maybe kind of developing those connections in that way might help you kind of sit and reflect, and also help you develop a plan for the future.
Love that. Proactive. Thank you. Brittney, anything you'd like to add?
I think my colleague said it best. I would just also echo, still work towards your short-term and long-term goals. Don't allow this, I mean, being first gen, we are so resilient. We as Dr. Ortega said, there's grit, there's resiliency. So I can almost see this as something to speak to later on in an interview, like, oh, I graduated, or I was in school when COVID-19 happened. So still work towards whatever short-term or long-term goals you may have, if that's taking classes. There's a bunch of free online classes that are being offered. Mariela talked about doing informational interviews. What goals do you have for yourself? But beyond academically, what are other things that you want to work on? Making yourself well-rounded, but giving yourself that time. And I really think the grace to just be, not feeling like you have to do 15 gazillion different things. So on top of all that, just learning to just be and to be still is really, really important as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of like power in the stillness. And it kind of relates to this follow-up question I'd like to offer to our panelists is kind of focusing on that. What specific positive coping strategies can first-gen students put into practice during these times?
I'll start. And my fellow colleagues can fill in. I think coping mechanism, it's a very large construct, but I think it's taken a personal inventory. Things have shifted, our environments have shifted. The notion of, let's say, self-care and self-preservation might look different now in terms of access. Realizing the reality of a lot of our students and some staff have been relocating, and sometimes you're sharing with multiple generational members of a family or folks in your home. And so what you thought you could once do in terms of, let's say, even going outside, for some can't do that because of particular physical distancing efforts. And so I think it's doing a personal inventory, taking what grounds you, reminding yourself that you are a vessel too, that you can take care of yourself. I think the one thing I learned from myself is just, if I don't take care of myself, it's really difficult to take care of other people. And so there's times in this now Zoom world that we live in now, I'm like, okay, I need to stretch right now because I've been sitting on this chair way too long. There's times where I need to just say, now I'm closer to the kitchen. That's a plus. So now I can take time for snacks and trying to find those moments. I think someone said here about commuting. I'm not commuting and I'm saving there in terms of time. And I think it's taking an inventory of the gratitude that I have, that right now I'm healthy and I'm safe, and realizing those moments matter just as much as those other goals that I had set in stone. And so a personal inventory allows us to kind of check off those things that we do have going well in our lives. And also it's reminding ourselves that challenges like this are going to continue to come. They've happened before and we'll get through them again. And I think it's reminding ourselves that we have it in ourselves to actually persist and persevere. My dear sister Brittney had mentioned that being still is a very powerful gift that we have. I know sometimes we feel like we have to keep going, but taking that moment to sit and be still is really important. But part of the personal inventory is looking at all areas of your wellness and trying to see what you can strengthen. So this might be the time where you're like, you know what, maybe I need to attend to my physical movement, or is it my eating? Have I not eaten all day? I've had some students in sessions where they're sitting, I get their location of work now is their couch or it's the floor, and they realize they haven't eaten or they haven't stood up. It's taking inventory on the things that can allow you to feel grounded.
Thank you so much.
I would piggyback on that and just say that self-care, right, is taking different forms now, and self-care means different things for everybody, right? So I'm a super social being, and so socializing from a distance has been important for me. So doing like Zoom hangouts, and like I've gone to like social distance hangouts where we sit around in a circle 6 feet apart from each other. And so you're still there, but far apart. And so being creative during this time to take care of yourself, I think is really important. And just moving, I think, is really important because we're so confined to one space that it's important to take note of that. So kudos to you, Jessica, for bringing that up, because it's totally true. Super hard to keep on that. And then I know Jessica didn't mention this, but it's all, and you're probably going to get an influx of students hitting you up, girl, but There are counselors on and off campus that can help you too, right? And sometimes just talking it out, and you just need a sounding board to like figure out what are some things I can do. And so take advantage of us and all the other counselors available to you.
It's all good. They can come our way. Let me just share something personal. I think to really personalize this, I think it was hard. I'm a social being too, Rosario. Like I miss us all running into each other all the time. And I think for me, it's been, okay, I'm a Zumba person. So I've been doing my virtual Zumba classes. It's not exactly the same, you know, because I'm used to like kind of someone right next to me. But being able to do that and having that access to be able to do that. So I feel very grateful for that. Or I actually see my husband more. Imagine that. And so making sure that once work is done, having a clear cut and timeline when it's done, walking away from it, closing the laptop, and then going for a walk. And so remembering those moments is important. So thanks for bringing that up.
I also think it's important to kind of know how much, not to overwork yourself, like don't bully yourself into being productive. I personally struggled with that, not to personalize it myself, but it was a big adjustment. I felt like I had to be glued to my computer all day in my chair, and before I knew it, I wondered like, oh my God, I've been here for 7 hours straight. Just go home, go eat, take a food break, come back, and then sit and do it all over again. And that I recognized that wasn't helping. So what I did for myself, and I also work with undergrads as well, is I advise them to make schedules sometimes, to make a routine, and to take a break every so often. And I find personally that helps me be more productive, and it motivates me a little bit more because I have at least 10, 15 minutes to regroup, recharge, and kind of pick up my work all over again.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would probably just add, I mean, with everyone said, creating structure for me has been probably the most helpful. Even if I make a to-do list, if I don't hit everything, that's okay. Give myself grace. I'll revisit it the next day or the next week, whatever. But I think the biggest thing is giving myself breaks. I'll literally put in my calendar like breaks so it'll remind me to get up, to go walk. So I've been walking my dog a lot, getting some exercise, cooking meals, meal prepping, and just decompressing, resting, whatever that looks like for people, it's different. But I think the structure and having balance is really important for our overall wellness, so we can be more productive in the work that we're putting forth.
Snaps, all that. Definitely could be a time where, yes, we're in stillness, but then there could be a lot of stagnant energy, and find the ways that we can move that energy out. Awesome. So our next question, we y'all kind of talked on it a little bit. I think there was a reference to information interviews, right? And so this question is, how can first-gen students be proactive in developing skills and finding internship/employment opportunities when back in their home communities?
I can speak to this one first. So actually at the Division of Career Pathways, unfortunately, we had to cancel our upcoming fairs due to COVID. But great thing is, all of this kind of fostered some creativity. So all of the UC Career Centers came together and developed a UC-wide career fair. So what that means is normal employers that perhaps wouldn't normally recruit at UCI are recruiting. So I believe we're having it next Tuesday and Wednesday. We're having a STEM fair and then a general career fair. So that's for internships, part-time, full-time jobs across different industries. You can register on Handshake. I encourage you to register because it is a limited amount of folks that are able, but it's from 6, so it's all day. You can see who's going to be there. Research, take advantage of your resources. Handshake, Eater Network, I really like. It's more intimate than LinkedIn. A lot of alumni, staff, and faculty are on there. So not just getting stuck on applying for jobs online or internships or whatever it may be, but start making those connections with people. People have a little bit more time on hand, so if you're able to connect via LinkedIn or reaching out, hey, do you want to do a Zoom or whatever it may be, I think people are more inclined to do so. So just being creative and being patient with the process, but also taking advantage of your resources is really big.
Thank you.
I just want to share a little bit of a story. When I was a senior in my undergrad, I really wanted this internship, And I was told no because someone else had already filled the position, but they said, come back in August and we'll revisit, we'll interview you. And I went back. And I think that so many people sometimes get, I don't know what's the word, not turned off, but like put off maybe, that like, oh, they already told me no, so I'm not going to try again. But if they tell you come back, you should go back, and really just reaching out to people. I know Mariela already mentioned doing informational interviews. That sometimes can lead to, if it doesn't immediately lead to something, it can sometimes lead to things in the future. I always tell this to students, it's not always what you know, it's who you know, who's going to get you that next opportunity. So creating and expanding your network, even during these times, is super important. And so I encourage students to reach out. I've had students tell me that they've applied to like 30, 40, 50 different places and get no's, but then that 51st opportunity is the one that tells them yes. So I know sometimes it can get discouraging, but keep going, keep pushing, you'll get there.
Thank you so much. There's that powerful piece of, right, like there's interest already being shown, and what is like to continue building on that relationship and extending that hand. Thank you. Anything else to add on career development, especially taking advantage of these being remote?
I mean, I just want to piggyback on just more on the informational interview piece. When I was talking a little bit about mentoring, there's many of us that are, willing to kind of hop on a Zoom and stay connected. I have some students that, for example, I run a peer program out of the counseling center. And so whether they were able to make the application deadline or maybe weren't selected for an interview, but that doesn't mean there's no opportunities. Oftentimes, I know me personally and other colleagues I have at the counseling center are more than happy to meet with you, to mentor you when it comes to anything related to psychology or not. It could be just professional development. And so think about those resources as well, and that can help prepare you, whether it be grad school, you're waiting for applications to hear back from, or you're also negotiating decision-making, because going into grad school, a lot of them are going to be remote working. And so how do you kind of prepare for that? And so some of us can be available to talk through that process. So use your resources. Like a lot of us would be able to meet with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would also just like to add, and this is kind of fresh on my mind because I participated in a LinkedIn workshop last week. And I know I'm guilty of not updating my LinkedIn. I honestly don't remember my password and I need to reset that at some point. But I remember one of the things that actually resonated with me is really highlighting, well, first of all, updating that profile is important along with your your resume. But another thing that resonated was like really highlighting any volunteer mentoring experiences that you might have in your profile, because oftentimes employers will instead of looking at your job experiences first, they start at your volunteer so they can kind of see what your volunteer experiences say about you. That struck to me because I had never really thought about that. I just kind of thought about volunteer as something I might do on the side, something that I enjoy, and kind of not really thinking about linking it to my professional network. But that's something to think about. Everything that you've done as an undergrad has value, and it really is up to you to kind of highlight that and really sell yourself in the interview. A lot of the technical things you learn on the job. It's really about the soft skills that you've developed whether it's in an internship, volunteer, or in student organizations, and kind of how you will translate those skills into a future opportunity.
Thank you. And definitely one thing just to add, if y'all are out there doing your volunteer work, whatever work that you're doing out there, don't feel afraid to have that moment captured, right? A picture, a video. And it's not for like a photo op, it's just to be like, this is a memory because this is what's important to me. This is where my passions lie, and you can put that on your LinkedIn. Perfect. So our next question, and Mariela, I'll probably start it with you. It's on graduate school. So many first-gen students are currently awaiting the results of their graduate school applications amid of what's going on, right? This uncertainty. What recommendations do you have for students considering deferring their acceptance or starting graduate school this year?
So I think I'll start with deferment because that's in our campus. When students become admitted to a PhD program, if they defer, usually the funding doesn't defer with them. So it's really important that students are aware or talking to someone on campus at which they will be attending graduate school. So kind of go over what the funding policies will look like for deferment. I think that's really important. Personally, that's something that's very important to me. Like, how am I gonna pay for college? And kind of being very aware of what funding will look like is something that I definitely want to be proactive and informed on. In addition, I think one advice that I tell students as well is to kind of be okay with adjusting to a new normal. This is temporary. I would say that most universities are trying to figure out kind of how we're planning moving forward. There's a lot of uncertainty going on with as it relates to classes, to future events. But I think just kind of being okay and understanding that hopefully this will be temporary, and within a few weeks or a few months, we would eventually transition back to what graduate school student life or graduate school academics will look like.
Thank you, Mariela.
I think I always encourage students to weigh everything out. I think the advice looks different for every person because everyone's situation is so different. So I urge students to consider cost of living, or obviously Mariela brought up a good point, funding. Is the funding going to be affected? Will it be available the same in the coming years? That's kind of hard to predict. We don't really know too much about that yet. So consider definitely cost, living expenses, funding, and the location. Are you needing to relocate to go to your graduate school program? So there's a ton of things that I encourage students to weigh out before they make a decision, because it will be different for everyone.
I would just add too, one of my students actually got into USC graduate program, and she updated me and let me know she's deferred it. And she's like, you know what, it just doesn't make sense for me. And I believe she's a first-gen student. And she said for the experience that she wants for herself, she's like, I'd rather just wait a year and see how things will look. So I always tell students, you know, graduate school is a big investment of time, money, energy, resources. So make sure it's the experience you want. Be in communication with their, you know, graduate division, whoever that person is that's been communicating with you, to see what their next steps look like. But also, in addition to funding and other things, like, is it going to be online? You know, is that conducive to your learning? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be hybrid? So you're informed and you can make the best decision for yourself. Because I know for me, if that was me, it would be definitely something I double think about if graduate school would be, you know, online. So don't feel like you have to make a decision right away. Be informed in your decision making.
Thank you, Brittney. Awesome. We're going to move on to our next question on gap year. So for those considering a gap year, a year-long break after university, sometimes it might be more than a year, what recommendations do you have for first-gen students in gaining practical experience and skills to become more competitive for graduate school?
I can go. I took a gap year. So in my gap year, I was super intentional about what I did. I volunteered because sometimes once you graduate, they're no longer called internships. And so I volunteered my time. And I remember having to have a conversation with my mom, like, it's going to be fine that they're not paying me. You know, I've got this side gig that's going to pay me a little bit, you know. And I told her it's going to pay off, I promise. And I was very fortunate that after working for 4 months for free, I was offered 2 different job positions working at the community college that I was at, because they saw my work ethic, and they liked how I worked. So I always tell students, you know, and you might have, as a first-gen college student, sometimes your parents expect, oh, you're done, so where are you going to go get a job and go make this money? but it doesn't always work like that, right? So sometimes you need to take that gap year to make yourself a better applicant, to really prepare, and even just make sure that this is the path that you want to go down. And so, as Brittney mentioned, you know, it's an investment of your time and your energy, your money. So you want to make sure that it is what you want. And sometimes taking on those volunteer internship opportunities either cements that it is what you want to do, or it tells you, just kidding, this might not be it. Let me try something else, you know? So I really encourage students to take on volunteer internship opportunities after they graduate to really help either build their application and or make it more concrete that that's graduate school is what they want to do.
I actually took 4 gap years in between because I didn't know what graduate program was a fit for me, what I wanted to do. I was very mindful of the investment. I wasn't very sure how I would navigate the graduate application process, but one thing that I did know and what I did do is I would constantly look up job descriptions and kind of see positions that I would potentially envision myself in, and kind of see what degrees the people in these positions had. Another thing that's actually important, and I was very fortunate enough, was maintaining a recommendations or maintaining relationships with faculty, because more than likely for graduate school, you're gonna have to submit a letter of recommendation, and one of them should be from a faculty member. And kind of securing that or maintaining that relationship throughout the years was a little difficult, but from time to time I shoot one professor an email about just kind of updating him or her what I was doing, and kind of, you know, I was honest sometimes. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I have this job. I kind of see myself doing this, but I kind of don't. And a lot of the times they would offer meaningful advice. And so kind of taking advantage of them still being available and kind of maintaining that two-way communication was something that helped me in the long run. And I also do think that, like, with that can come a little bit of a sacrifice. You might have to start bottom up. I know I had that many times, and sometimes it wasn't the pay that the pay wasn't comfortable, but you kind of do it for the experience. And I always kind of continuously stayed focused. This is my goal. This is what I'm going to do to get there. These are the people I'm going to connect with. And I think in the end, things pay off.
Thank you, Mariela.
Thank you, Mariela. So to piggyback on these amazing colleague stories, mine's a mix of personal as well as just kind of some tips. So I took a gap year after my undergrad. I was just ready to be done. I'm not sure why the rush. I think I was tired. But I was also at a place in my life where I was very shy at that time. I just met my first mentor at that time as a first-gen student. So that last year of my college year. So I felt a little bit behind, and I didn't feel I had that confidence to persevere and go into a grad school program. So I had met my mentor that last year, which was a beautiful blessing. And at that point started getting active in service related work. So at that time I wanted to do a lot of work with children. And so I started working with children with autism. And a lot of our students in social sciences, if you're listening, do a lot of this ABA work, what they call behavioral technicians now, I believe. And so I did a lot of that work because I wanted to kind of get some exposure to helping people. So I was wanting to help children, but I was also working with families and family systems. And so, and that was also pushing me outside my comfort zone. And so I continued to do that in my gap year. So it was a paid position. So I kind of took on different clients, and I would go to their homes and I would provide the ABA work. And so when I was doing that, but I was also connected to that mentor. And so that's another opportunity to look into, is sometimes faculty will work with you on research. Because if you're also looking into PhD programs, that might be something you're going to have to do. And so that might be some opportunities. I've known some students that have taken gap years, or they graduated, taken some time off to kind of before they go apply. And so I did that for the year. So I was helping and getting exposed to research during that year. And I went to Arizona State University. And so that's at that time, you know, a few years ago, at that time I was, if you picked up on that, at that time, you were allowed to take some classes within a particular school as a non-degree student. So I was able to not be in a program, but I was able to take a couple grad classes. alongside other students. I know it might be different at all universities and it was a different time, but I was wanting to still kind of stay in that rhythm. I think there's that fear that, oh no, I'm going to lose my momentum. I'm going to lose my pasión, my passion, or I'm going to get locked into a kind of a job. And so as long as you're focused on what you want to do, trust me, it's going to help you and it helps revive you a little bit. Some of you are probably feeling burnt out. That's okay. It's a nice restorative experience. And I think for me, I can't be kind of in the books without having like a ton of classes. And I was kind of walking on the campus a little bit to still feel connected to it. So it's another idea. And I can share more with some of you if you're interested in that particular area.
Good point. If you're not burnt out, what I also did, because I was scared of getting out of the school mode, was I took some like 1 or 2 classes in that first fall semester when I didn't have too many paid jobs. And so that I kept in the school mode really that way. And nothing too crazy, right? Don't take a full class load. And I did that at a community college.
Thank you, Rocio. Right, next question is on networks. So what can first-gen students do in order to cultivate professional relationships and connection in today's digital age?
I can go first and speak to that. I'm a big relational person, so I would say COVID's been challenging in that way, like not having the immediate networks. Like Zoom's great. What is it, House Party? There's all these different apps and ways to stay connected with people. Those are awesome. So I think as it relates to professionalism, I mentioned some of these earlier, but LinkedIn, Anteater Network, but I would say think about your immediate networks. Is it your staff that's around you, faculty, if you're interning, if you're part of the coach program, reach out to Dr. Ortega. So thinking about your immediate community, even your peers, your colleagues, I think there's a lot of value in just support, not just for professionalism opportunities, but to support each other throughout the process. You'll oftentimes find that you're not in it alone, that so many people are going through, if it's different circumstances, but, similar challenges, and this, it's challenging. So, staying connected with colleagues, peers, mentors, supervisors. If you don't have that, then, I always tell students in my appointment, let's follow up, let's do another appointment so they know they have a point of contact, someone at the Division of Career Pathways to help guide them throughout their time at UCI. So be intentional, don't be afraid to reach out. I think it's really speaking to stepping beyond your comfort zone. I'll speak to that. It's been uncomfortable for me doing more webinars. It's like, I'm an in-person person. I don't do technology, but you know what? I do now. So we're all stepping outside our comfort zone. So I encourage you to do so. And if you need guidance and help and how that looks like, we're here as resources to help with that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brittney. Any other tips?
I echo a lot of what Brittney said. I am very much in person, and adjusting to virtual has been hard. One of our undergrad programs, I accepted students virtually, and I have yet to meet them, and that's like bugging me. I'm like, I can't wait to meet these students in our program, but I definitely had to adjust and develop new strategies to connect with them virtually. One fun thing that I always tell my students, or that I've actually learned and adopted myself, is building a professional social media account. Personally, Twitter works for me. I love reading Twitter. I love posts. And in the academia, I find in a lot of the work that we're doing is a lot of professors are tweeting constantly about their work, about the things that their students are doing. And a lot of students, graduate students, also kind of share their experiences. Even before COVID-19, it's busy. And that's one way for me to kind of stay connected, also feel that I'm not alone in some of my struggles, that everyone is kind of experiencing a little bit of the same in their own which way. And that makes me really, really appreciative of a lot of things as well. So I definitely encourage you to develop find a network, an outlet, I should say, that allows you to express yourself with the professional community.
Echo, echo, both of you. I am an in-person person too. It's been very difficult. I think also just, I mean, I think about just natural greetings culturally for me is to hug and a lot of things that you normally would be doing. So with that means though, getting comfortable with networking in different ways. And so I've been having kind of virtual tea times, trying to do that, and I have them scheduled out with some of my friends here and there, but also making sure not to burn out that as well, because if you burn the candle from both ends, it fizzles out. And so knowing that I need more and more time to recenter in between a lot of the zooming, because also with our eyes and a lot of, we don't get the multidimensional piece of a person, and neurologically what's that doing to our bodies and our eyes and everything when we're trying to kind of take in information actually basically provokes more stress in us. And so I think for me, it's just getting comfortable with all that social media, the things that I fought. So, but actually I'm being more comfortable with it. I'm getting more comfortable with it because our counseling center has been trying to pump out more outreach related work via video, through our Instagram. A little highlight to the counseling center we're trying to do on Tuesdays called Insta Info. Yours truly is going to try to do that. So go live and try to answer questions, and I hope I have answers for them. But I think it's also tapping into an inner courage that we do have. I think it's reminding us that, okay, we're gonna have to step outside our comfort zone. This is what it needs to be right now. And so how do we make it more our own kind of story, and put it out there? And so I think when we kind of walk into kind of that space of ambiguity and discomfort, we're going to find that we're going to come out stronger. And so I encourage you all to kind of take the healthy risks. And so if it's like some mentor you've been wanting to kind of track down, you can find them probably now, and do things like that. I know myself, along with this amazing community here, I know you've been all doing kind of probably check-ins this way. I have been too. Mentor meetings, and it's a little bit more flexible. The time I be on the road commuting, oh, I can squeeze in a student and I can chat a little bit. And so finding some mixed blessings in the midst of everything has been great.
Well, thank you. I love that. I think the phrase was like healthy risks, right? And like this is the time to kind of push that boundary of kind of evolution of us, right? Both of like personal, professional, but I think collectively too. Like this, I feel like this is where we're at. Before we get to Q&A session, last question I would like to offer to the panelists is, what words of encouragement / advice do you have for our first gen students during this time?
I think I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Keep it up. You can't control the rest of the world's state, but you can control your attitude towards it. So keep pushing forward, and we'll get there. And if you need that encouragement, look at all of us here ready to support you and give you that good energy.
That's a retweet.
I was waiting for others to go. I'm like, oh, I feel like Brittney wants to go. But I echo that, Rocio. I mean, just don't give up. When we think about our stories, they matter. And especially as a first gen student, if that is your story, and a first gen graduate, it's still with you. I still get in that place like, oh, do I know what I'm doing? And I go back into that place of feeling that self-doubt at times and navigating this. And then when I see other people seems to do it so seamlessly, right, it makes it more difficult. Or if your own personal story means that you have additional struggles at home that you had some separation from, and now you're there in the midst of it all, I think it's reminding yourself to not give up, that you matter, and ground yourself with things that make sense for you, that somehow ground you to your meaning and purpose. And right now it might feel like you're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea where to go. There's at least one or two things you could probably do or say to yourself that grounds you, that reminds you that you matter, that you have intention, and that hasn't changed. And so I want you to stay firm in that and stand firm in that.
Thank you. jump to Mariela, then Brittney. Or Brittney.
Yeah, I literally had what Rosario had too. I try to be optimistic and positive, so we can't control a lot of things. Controlling your attitude is a big thing. So I really echo what Dr. Ortega and Rosario said about really grounding yourself, whatever it may be. It looks different for everyone. And then also maintaining a positive attitude, even in the midst, really, of all circumstances. Finding joy, too, in the little everyday things. That's been helpful for me. It could be like, oh my gosh, Target had toilet paper, like, whatever it may be. But that is joyful. I've really enjoyed taking my dog out on walks, I mentioned earlier. So, being grateful for the everyday things that we once maybe took for granted. Thank goodness that we still have the ability to have technology and to be able to have these conversations with each other, have this community. So I think we have a lot to be grateful in the midst of, this crazy time. So just remembering that.
So I think I will continue to echo what my colleagues have shared. I'm trying to stay positive. I know there's days when it just, things aren't going well. I know that happens to me. One day I'll have a good day. Another day I'm like, I'm so over this. When is this going to be over? I miss just walking into Starbucks, getting my coffee and running out, like the little things. The other day I'm still looking for toilet paper. So the day that I find it, I will be very happy. But just appreciating the little things and kind of, I remind myself that after all of this, I'll be that much more resilient. I'll have a better story. I'll have a better story to tell. I know someone touched on it earlier. This might become a potential job interview question. Like, what do you do when faced with challenges? Well, guess what? I'm resilient. And here's why. Here's what I did during the COVID pandemic for myself. But definitely, I know I take it day by day. I think that it sounds really cliche, but for me, like one day at a time, I try to control, be mindful of the things that I can control, just let go of the things that I can't. And that really makes a difference in how my energy for the day as well. Just stay positive.
Love that. Thank you so much to our panelists. And I'm going to be looking over the questions that we have on our chat. We have one, and just send a message to everybody. Feel free to type that in. If you want to use the raise your hand feature and want to verbally express that, feel free to do that as well. So I'll read out the question, and I believe that Karissa will be answering the question. So the question is, what can I do if I no longer have passion for school? I need a break, but I can't go anywhere. I want to meet with my loved ones, but all of them are afraid of COVID-19.
Yeah, and actually we can have the panelists answer this one. I just figured that let's answer it live. And I know it kind of relates to the motivation piece, but when we're talking about being passionate about something, that's certainly a difficult thing to, try to have every single day. So go ahead.
I think breaks are really important. So if you need to take a break away from a screen, if you need an extension for an assignment, like faculty, I think are being pretty flexible. So reach out and let them know. I think oftentimes as students, we're like, the faculty, they're like this big person on a pedestal, but they're human too. They're dealing with things at home too, and they get it. So if you're feeling like really overwhelmed and you might need an extension for an assignment so you can take a step away for a day from your computer, don't be afraid to reach out. And then as far as socializing with your loved ones, as I mentioned, I made it work, right, in a circle 6 feet apart. So even if that gives you that extra taste, just no hugging and kissing, and you'll be all right. Just make sure you're practicing safe social distancing, and you can get that social taste if the FaceTime is not cutting it anymore, or the Zoom isn't cutting it anymore with your loved ones. You can do it that way as well.
Thank you, Rosario.
I'll just share a little bit of the piece about the passion for school. I think there's, to be a student at UCI, that means you're already amazing. So that's for one. But I think there's also, this idea that you have to maintain it, even in this unprecedented time. And I think it's learning how to dial it in a different way and redefining what passion looks like. And so for me, I wanted to kind of transition, and then everything's going to flow the same way. Well, It didn't. I had to course correct and I had to figure it out. And what I did was trying to, okay, I can still maintain my passion, but I'm going to redefine what that looks like for me. And that means some days, what Mariela said, sometimes I'm like, I'm not feeling this. And I might give, you know, because for me, I want to give 150, 200%, right? That would be kind of just average for us as UCI students, faculty, and staff. And I think it's just kind of having some acceptance that this is kind of an uncertain, unprecedented time, which means I need to dial it differently and I need to adjust it differently. Doesn't mean you let go of your standard. I think some people feel like I'm letting go of my standard. I'm just going to just do marginal work. No, it just means that, you know what, I deserve this. I deserve to renourish my soul, because if I'm feeling sad, depressed, more anxious, increased panic attacks, which all these things I've been hearing, feeling a sense of loss, we need to acknowledge that those feelings are happening. I think I always say, like, emotions are like clouds, and sometimes they pass by, and sometimes it might feel like they're just sitting over your head and they're not going anywhere and they're showering over your head. And the way I see life and the way I see challenges is we sometimes just need, okay, do I have the adequate umbrella? Do I have the adequate raincoat, the adequate attire to weather the storm? And so that means I may have to readjust. And so I'm just saying right now, be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, and maybe when you think about passion, redefine what that might look like right now. And what we've been saying already, this is temporary. We've persisted before and we'll get through it again. So sometimes we just have to acknowledge, okay, you know what? I'm not going to get as much as I thought I was going to get done today, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try again. In terms of the family piece and loved ones or whomever, I know that can be difficult when everyone has a different take on it. I've had some that definitely like, no, we can't see you, we can't be near you. If there's other creative ways to connect, so if you have the access to particular technologies, do that. If you don't, who are those people that are like family to you? Some other people that can give you the love and nourishment that you might need, that doesn't replace your family or loved ones, but it provides the need of that connection. So that's just a little bit.
Thank you so much. Any last thoughts before we close out? Any last questions? Oh, I see a hand raised. Yes, Maria.
So students won't be able to say anything, but if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A. It looks like Maria's question, if you would like to read it, Daniel's in the Q&A portion.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Maria's question is, are there any resources tailored to women, first gen, that can help us get through grad school financially?
So I can probably take a first step at answering this. UCI specifically, for PhD programs, we support, or we have a lot of funding available to diversity students, not specifically just to Latinx or women. The key with that is that a lot of the times students don't apply to those fellowships directly, rather faculty nominate the students and they kind of get that information from the personal history statements or the statement of purpose essays or the overall graduate application. That's how it works for our PhD programs. For master's programs, however, a lot of the programs are self-supported, but that doesn't mean that specific schools don't have funding or scholarships available to support students. In California, we're unable to fund students based on race and gender. That's a violation to Proposition 209. However, the University of California is committed to supporting diversity across the state. And they have gone as far as defining diversity. And I would encourage you to Google Proposition, education policy. Why am I drawing a blank? Regents Policy 4400. There you go. That policy tells you all the different things that make you diverse, and you can kind of read through that and identify kind of which parts of that definition resonate with you and incorporate that into your graduate application in some way or another. Another thing that I would say is just take some time to really review financial support at the for the program that you're applying to. That way you kind of get a better idea of how students are funded in that school or particular program, and what it is that programs are looking for.
I don't know about specifically for women or Latinx, but I know a lot of people told me when I was applying to graduate school, like, oh, you're not going to get any money. There's no money in graduate programs. And although Mariela mentioned that PhDs are generally funded at UCI, at the Cal States, depending on the size of endowment at the Cal States, your degree could be paid for. So my 3-year full-time master's program was paid for while I was at Cal State Long Beach. So it just depends. And so you can definitely reach out to the programs that you're interested in and ask about what that profile generally looks like. Again, these coming years might be a little different since there's budget cuts coming down the pipeline. So we don't know if the endowments will be affected and how that'll affect funding, but definitely reach out to the programs and see what they generally offer students.
Awesome. Thank you, Rocio. Thank you, Mariela, for the personal experience, but also like the historical context and like reference to region policy. So just want to send a lot of love and gratitude to our panelists as we're closing out for today. And I also want to thank our participants for joining us and asking very important questions during this time. And again, I want to reaffirm that you're not alone in this process. We are here for you. And hopefully you feel like you have more tools that empower you to feel like you can create change despite these changes that are occurring. So thank you all. And thank you to the panelists.
I want to thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. This was wonderful. Reach out to us if you need anything.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye, take care.
Virtual abrazo hugs. It's been so hard. Okay.
Bye, guys.